Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. How's it going, guys? Season's done and dusted. I'm filming this one on the Friday of round 24, but the season will be done and dusted home and away style by the time I post it. Saw Jackson Davey do a video on this sort of a topic, and I have been thinking about it for a while as well, because I don't know about you, but the great game of SuperCoach that we once loved, it's changed a lot, and people like myself keep making SuperCoach content, which has created a world of extreme similarities within our teams, and the old phrase cookie cutter team. You know, everyone's got them. The rich get richer. Those popular ones get more and more popular. You know, you've got to bring in these players, and by the end of the year, you're looking at your team with 4 differences to your mate, or 6 if you're lucky. Maybe I've seen head-to-head games with 2 players difference. And it takes away a lot of that enjoyment, because Nick Dacos will be going nuts, and you kind of like, I used to get excited about it, but you kind of like, it doesn't really matter because everyone has him. I'm gaining no advantage over the rest of the competition. So there also is a fair bit of disengagement post-buys. There's a lot of talk about trades and that type of thing. What can we change? I feel as if the headquarters at SuperCoach Land are wanting to change and address this a little bit, because they introduced trade boosts and they've changed the trade formations a few times. So I've got a few ideas. I've got one big idea which would change things relatively dramatically, but stick with me. Now, the philosophy behind it is to reward our starting team. Now, in fact, I've done a little bit of pre-work here for you guys. So the reasons for the change: remove the cookie cutter team, because I think that's the toughest thing at the moment, is that lack of feeling of he's my guy. You know, that point of difference player feels gone. And I've had times where I've even been like, do I go a point of difference bloke, or do I just go with everyone else? I mean, I may as well just go with everyone else, because at least if I fall on my sword, I fall with everyone else. Where I remember back in the day, and part of it was because of less media attention to it, and I think just the popularity of the game and the information on pre-season games and all sorts of stuff wasn't as much. So you could actually have a bit more of a spread of players and a bit more individual elements about your team. Not anymore. So remove the cookie cutter team, and I think it does go like that in the way of, once one player becomes a must-have top 6 forward, if you don't get him this week, then you get him next week, or you get him the week after, and it just culminates in this snowball effect of the cookie cutter team. I want to reward the starting team more, entice the point of difference players more, bring back more decision-making strategies for coaches. Now, the trade boost is a good thing. I like it. I will keep that. The biggest issue for me with the cookie cutter team is, and not rewarding the starting squad, and I'll have an example for Nick Dacos soon, is that Nick Dacos turns out to be one of the best picks of the year. Players and coaches who picked him for their first team, their starting squad, should be more rewarded than they were. So I ditched him late. I panicked. I wasn't sure if he'd get tagged. I bring in Sam Doherty, but I just bring in Nick Dacos the next week. And the only advantage, the people who actually had the guts to go with him, is the points he scored. They get his round 1 score. That's all they get. So they're only 100 and whatever points better off than me for the whole year. And all I had to do was watch him 1 week and be, oh, yep, he's a gun. I'll bring him in. There's not enough reward. And the trade boosts are great, but what you used to get were correctional trades, 4 of them, rounds 1 and 2. You could make 4 correctional trades to your starting squad if you made mistakes. Now with the trade boost, we can get 6, which just lends itself to even more cookie cutter style teams. You can make 6 mistakes now in the first couple of weeks, and you can change it before prices even change. And that's the part that I want to have changed in SuperCoach. So some floated ideas, and you can add to this list, and I'm not knocking any of them necessarily, but, you know, buying trades for salary cap, I don't know how that would work, a bit complicated. Utility players to cover injuries or suspensions, I don't really like this. I think injuries and suspensions and picking blokes who are less injury prone and that type of thing, I feel as if it's part of the game. I just think that's fair and square. Sometimes you cop them, sometimes you don't. Unlimited trades, you know, you just trade until you're done. I don't know, it could be dangerous, and I've heard a lot of EPL fantasy style tools being implemented, triple captains and bench scorers, sort of stuff that I'm not overly aware of. But they're just a few ideas. You might be able to add some different ones. And I saw, dividing the trades into, I think it was 3 blocks of 9 trades or something like that, like Jackson Davey had. But I wouldn't change that. But what I would change is a somewhat drastic change. And I don't want it to come across too complicated. It would be built in to our SuperCoach database and into the trading landscape. So let's take a look at that now, and I've got a couple of examples for you, and I'd love to hear your feedback because I really do think we can't sit on our hands. We need to change something. How drastic it is, we'll wait and see, but I feel like there needs to be more reward for that starting squad and entice a bit more of a spread of players. So let's take a look at that now. Alright, so here is my idea, and it is a trade-in loading. 805 players in the league. As of now, 22 of them are in 25% of teams or more. And that ownership is a bit of an iffy number because even the very, very most popular players like Ziebell pretty much maxed out at 76 or 77% ownership. So it's not like this 25% is out of 100 because for whatever reason, that number is a bit weird with teams dropping out or one-off teams and they never touch them again. I don't know. That is such a glut of players. Just one lot of, that's a full team, 22 players with just basically everyone's got them. And that's what leads us to having minimal differences to our side. So I'm sure you're all looking at these numbers going, what the hell is Shorty going on about here? But bear with me. Trade-in loading. It'll make a bit more sense with the examples coming up. But what this would do is you would pay a loading on top of their price depending on their ownership. Now, I think it'd be advantageous to have the percentage ownership kept in the dark, not advertised. No percentages before round 1 because I just think it would lend itself to maybe everyone jumping on similar players purely based off ownership because of this and trying to avoid the loading. That's what I'd do. Maybe SuperCoach Plus want to have some sort of point of difference. So that's what I would do. If they're in 10 to 15% of sides, 5% loading. 15 to 25, 10%. 25% or more, 20% loading. And these numbers, they're just raw numbers. They can be chopped and changed. Smarter people than I can come up with a more exact, precise, relevant number. But that's just what I threw out. It's a bit simpler to do the maths. And it doesn't apply to players under 200k. We still need cash cows and rookies. And the ownership is based off the week prior, just to avoid, because obviously ownership changes throughout the week. Some people trade on Sunday night, others trade on Thursday. So you wouldn't be disadvantaged trading later in the week. It'd be a fixed ownership percentage for the week. And I would reduce the trades down to 28. Trade boosts remain. I think the decisions about holding players is out the door until late in the year. We just trade because we've got so many. I think there needs to be the conversation more about, he's out for 1 or 2. Do I hold him? We used to do that all the time. I've got 24 trades. I've got to hold maybe. Not even a conversation anymore. We need more decisions as coaches. And a run home price. I think you've got the overall 50k. I'm sure the Herald Sun have a couple of K hanging around or $5,000 hanging around, whatever it is, grand final tickets, I don't know. After the buys, just reset a different set of rankings. The overall remains. Of course, you've got to have the overall rankings continue, but a little sublet of post-buy. And it might be like, geez, I've had some shit luck and a shock and buys, but I'm with everyone else for these grand final tickets or this couple of K. It might just keep, even if it's 2, 3, 4 weeks, it might keep the interest up a little bit to just have a complimentary prize. Now, here's the examples, right? Nick Dacos, and let's bring it up. It's probably easy to look at here, and I'll divert a little bit to my notes as well. So I think it's important to reward the starting squad because we spend months and months on it. We talk about it for ages, and then you get one thing wrong and you just change it for a trade week 1 or week 2. There's no real disadvantage or consequence to making a mistake in our starting squad. There needs to be more. So Dacos, 502, bang, he's in 33% of sides, so he's super popular. And what that would look like is the people who picked him from the start. Huge advantage. Not only do they have him, but he's theirs. To bring him in round 2, you would cop a 20% loading because he's above that 25% ownership. 603k. And that would continue on, If you didn't go him and you thought, oh, geez, I'm not sure. 547, boom, continues to be 20% on top of that. So what it would avoid is this. The 33% goes to 45, 63, 65, 71. Everyone's got him. So what I think it would do is it would reward that starting squad more. And if you pick him at the start, it's a real big extra investment that you've got to make to bring him into your team. And what it would actually do is players like Marcus Bontempelli or Clayton Oliver, if you pick them at the start of the year and they're in 27% of teams, 20% loading on top of 660k, there's no way you're going to get them. So it would avoid the ownership, I think, going beyond 40%. You would see still popular players, but if you started with them, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder for a lot of people to bring them in for the rest of the year. Let's have a look at another example. Because I brought Dacos in for round 2, I should cop more of a consequence than just one trade. It's one trade and 100k, 20% loading basically. Who have we got next? Jordan Dawson. I don't think anyone really expected him to go as good as he did. He moved into the midfield. Who would have thought? Let's take a look at his numbers. 18% he was round 1. He's popular, not through the roof like Dacos. But still, there's a few backing him in. Takes a bit of guts. Get rewarded. 10% loading if you want to bring him in at that price range. And it would avoid this. Look at that. 17s, then 27, 36, 40s, 50. He's in everyone's team. Everyone's team. So you would have to pay $663, and that's doing it before the prices change. Good luck getting him when he's at $666, or good luck getting him when he's $655 at round 5. You're paying 20% on that. That's over $750k. Bloody good luck. So what it would encourage is, instead of everyone being like, okay, I've got to bring in Butters and Goulden and Dawson and all these guys that we all want to get, it would encourage you to go, oh geez, I can't afford the 20% loading. I cannot afford that. I've got to look at some guys that are below 10%, pay them for what they are, or at least below 15%. And this is a trade-in loading. You're not trading them out for the loading. Their price when you trade them out is their price. But to bring a player in, you're going to have to pay a little bit extra. Another good example was Tim English, I think. And he's a really interesting example because, again, a bit like Dawson, not everyone saw it coming. He was popular, don't get me wrong, but not as popular as what we see here. 47%, touching 50 nearly. 17%, similar to Dawson. But he goes nuts after about round 5, everyone's got him. Pretty much everyone's got him. But what would happen here, 581, to bring him in before the price rises, 10% loading, falls between the 15 and 25, 639. You still might do it, but look, after the first price rise, English, price 616, 26 ownership, you're paying 740. He's gone. There's no way you're getting him. Now, obviously, some of these percentage numbers wouldn't hit certain percentage numbers because of the loading. So smarter people than I, like I said, can work out, the mathematicians can work out where the sweet spots are and what's an appropriate marker here and a parameter there. I just think it would stop the explosion of a guy going from 15% to 50%, which is pretty much every team that knows what they're doing. It would reward those who start them. You get their points, you get them at the price. And for those who missed, yeah, you can get him, mate, but it's going to cost you way extra. And it would incentivize going a point of difference pick. And there's a lot of good players out there. There's heaps of them, hundreds of good players. But barely any of them are over 6-7%. The majority, like I said before, are above 15%. So, and there's a glut of them above 20 and 25%. Now, who else have we got? And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you think I've lost the plot, tell me. And I know it seems it's very different, but it's not that you're not going to have to work the maths out. This will be built into the SuperCoach system. It'll tell you, here's his price plus this loading. I think it'll reward those premiums that we start. And I think the first few weeks, teams will still be relatively popular, but I think what will happen as the year goes on and you've got to trade guys out because they get injured or whatever you will go from having, I don't know, Paddy Cripps or someone who gets injured, Clayton Oliver. When you got to trade those big dogs out, you won't just be able to sideways trade to Bontempelli or Rory Laird because you got to play a loading. So you might have to go to, I don't know, Sam Walsh, who's only in 9% of teams, or I don't know, you can work out an example, like whoever it might be, Chad Warner or something like that. I just think there needs to be more reward and in turn consequence for some decisions we make in this game. Now, Jack Ziebell, also a very interesting one, and he's interesting because he's a bit cheaper in price. And it might feel like an unrealistic and pretty harsh loading on some of these premiums, but for guys who are a bit cheaper, it's only a 20, 30, 40k whack. It's not too much extra. Like if you look at Ziebell, you could bring him in before the price rise for his normal price because he didn't hit 18% of teams until everyone brought him in before the price rise. So you would still be able to get him before that price rises at the 4.6 ownership. That's how it would work in my mind. But if you didn't choose to go with Ziebell, he's 401 and now he's in 18% of teams. So players can get away from you. You got to make decisions. You got to be, do I get him now? Because if I don't, the rest of the comp is, and then I'm left at the station, mate. 18% of sides there, and all of a sudden Jack Ziebell's getting away from you. Now, he hasn't turned out to be an amazing pick, but at the start of the year, he was a really good pick. And those people who went at him, 3.6, fucking good on you. Why should you not get more reward? Now he goes 102, 123. Boom, he's up to 18.4. Like I said, you can get him at that original price because he didn't go up until after 2 weeks. But after that, he's valued at 401. And now incurs a 10% loading, 441. And that continues on. So that continues on all through here. Now, you might still get a few low jumping on because he's in the mid 440s, but as we get up more to 500, and then he's in the 20% loading, you'll stop a little bit of this going from 23, 24% all the way up to 32. And he ended up starting to cop the sub and struggle a bit, but you get what I mean. Another example, and I think my final one, my last one, is Will Day. Who, again, in hindsight, now Will Day had his quiet periods through the year, didn't he, in the middle, but he's turned out to be a bloke that averages 98 at 360 or something, like as a dual position player. That's pretty damn good. I need a glass of water. Sure, he's been talking a bit. So, interestingly, 10%, he actually would have been, you'd have to pay a loading to bring him in after round 1. But interestingly, he then falls below that because he didn't set the world on fire. But as you can see, it climbs quite quick up to the 20% mark after he goes bang, 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 139, 107, 97. So he's an interesting one where it's a slower burn, but you can see the impact that loading has. You can see how instead of a player getting away from you because you can miss a couple of price rises and you're like, it's only going to cost me 42k. But you can see how quickly it can get away from you. You're paying 402. He's in less than 10%. Then he goes up into the loading bracket. You're paying an extra 100k in 1 week. Even though he's only gone up 52. He then only goes up another 38. But for you, it's another 90. So he's gone from 402 to 590 in 2 weeks to bring him in. But he's only actually gone up 90 actual dollars. 90k, I should say. But that's all relevant to where he's at in his percentages. So, forgive me, I've had a bit of a cold this week. They are my thoughts. They are my thoughts as how I would fix the game. I'd really appreciate your thoughts on it. The main thought behind this is that you would be far more rewarded for your starting team and your premium that you start round 1 it's going to cost your mate a hell of a lot more. It's not just a matter of a little correctional trade before the prices change. Because I didn't want to change too many things of the fabric of our game. But I wanted to change one relatively big thing in the way we bring players in. So that's the way I would approach it. I think it protects a bit of uniqueness about the game. And as the weeks and years go on, I think we'll spread that proportion of players far more wider across the board. And you'll be there barracking for 12 different players compared to your mate. There'll still be similar teams, and I think that's fine. That's just how it's going to be. But it's got out of control. I would bring the trades down. It's going to encourage more decisions. Do I pay the loading? Yeah, I can afford that. If I can't, then I've got to go digging for someone who's not in everyone's team. I've got to pay a bit of difference, and that might feel harsh, but it's not harsh in my books. I think it's more about rewarding the player and the coach that goes with that gut feeling and gets it right, as opposed to everyone being like, yep, I'll get him in, I'll bring him in, how easy is this game? I just got to watch bloody SuperCoach with DR, and I've got one of the best teams in the league because, he's giving great advice and all I've got to do is watch a few videos. But I think this will protect a bit and people will actually have to make more decisions, and it's just going to add a bit to the game. More uniqueness, point of difference. You get my gist. So there you go. I wonder if you're out there, SuperCoach world, those guys who run the show, give me your feedback. I'd love your thoughts. I think it's left of field thinking, but I reckon it's all right. I reckon if we wrap our heads around this could really change the game and add such an interesting element to the game. A game that is honestly gone stale for me. I'm all about draft now. I'm all about draft. Classic I still love, clearly, but I don't feel like it's as good a reflection about who knows SuperCoach anymore. The reflection isn't there anymore, and I think once we've got to that point, it has to change. So that's the way I'd approach it. But I'm going to go watch some Friday night footy. Got to eat some dinner first. That's probably burnt in the oven by now, but going to get stuck into it. Have a good weekend, guys. I'll post this one at the start of next week. So good to see you guys having a good year. It's been another great year, so I appreciate all your comments and involvement in the channel. But yeah, you'll still see me from time to time. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.